Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Jatin Mohan. I'm a Fulbright scholar. I'm a trained Hindustani classical vocalist, and I'm currently working as an assistant professor at ILM University. So this topic is about what is Fulbright and what are the processes required for anyone to get it. Um, Before beginning anything, I think I should first start what is Fulbright and why it is important, or why anybody should care about it, particularly in academia and research. So Fulbright is an American flagship program which was started around 1946 by a senator called Senator J. William. So what it do, it makes American researchers and scholars um, allows them to pursue research and education to any university of their choice in around the world, and it does vice versa. So any scholar and researcher from any country can go to the US and pursue research and education in an American university. So it works both ways. It sends American, students and researchers all around the world. For example, I had an American, I knew an American Fulbrighter who went to Croatia. There's one Fulbrighter I know who went to Australia, and they go all around the world. In fact, many of them comes to India. Many of them comes to India. Interestingly, many of them are Indian Americans. In fact, one of my close American mentors, she's an Indian American. She was born and brought up here, but went to the US to pursue her higher studies. And then she, became an American citizen. And then she came back to India on a Fulbright recently. So that's how Fulbright works. So I just give a bit of brief about Fulbright history. So Fulbright was started in 1946 by this senator, J. William Fulbright. And what is interesting, what is important here is the date, is the year 1946. It was just after the World War II. So it was the time when US was in teeth war against the Soviet Union. And both countries were trying to, push on their global agenda and push on their presence over other countries. US took a sort of a diplomatic route. What they must have thought, right, that if more people are going to come to the US and will be acclimatized with the US's culture, and more Americans will travel to other countries, there would be a less chance of a war, and it will also work as sort of a cultural diplomacy. Um, for example, I went to the US on a Fulbright scholarship. I was in New York, and I know a lot about USA now, a lot about USA now. And to be honest, in all honesty, I'm slightly impressed about the US's infrastructure, about the independence they provide. So there's a bit of an American inside me, which which happened because of Fulbright. So this cultural diplomatic program, it became sort of a success. The way it was thought, at least for me, and I suppose for many other Fulbrighters who went to the US, and Fulbrighters coming to all around the world. Um, so um, so why anybody should apply for it? What it gives to you, in addition to the research and academic opportunities it provides to you, it also provides you with an international exposure. And it all depends where you're going. For example, I went to New York. And New York is a melting pot. People from all around the world are already there. But when I went there, I met at least 350 Fulbrighters from all around the world. My field is musicology, but I met people from anthropology, ethnomusicology, or physics, or chemistry, biology, any field you name off. They all were there, and all of them were really bright minds from their countries. I, in fact, met someone from a country called Mauritania. And very interesting, when I met him, I came to know, that country like Mauritania exists. I had no idea about it. Also shows how poor I am in geography. But I came to know about the country, and I met someone from there. So it increases my international exposure, my idea of the world. It expanded to a great extent. And Fulbright covers everything. In addition, what it gives you in terms of international experience and collaboration it provides you. It also provides you with everything you need. It gives you a very healthy stipend. It covers your airfare. It provides you with the visa, with the American visa, which is a travesty if you're trying to apply for it as a student without Fulbright. It's difficult to get in, but I received it in a minute. which was not the case for other students there in the embassy. I saw, with my own eyes, whatever. So it's very easy to get it if you're a Fulbright. So if they take care of you all the way around, they provide you with an education, illness, and a sickness program. They also provide you with the medical insurance. So they take care of you thoroughly. So Fulbright currently is in 160 countries with bilateral partnerships. There are 49 around high commissions of Fulbright and 160, countries which have Fulbright. Um, so the Fulbright Commission in India, for which I went to, and every Indian, if would be interested in applying Fulbright, you have to go through that commission, and that commission's name is USEF, USIEF, United States India Educational Foundation. They are located in Mandi House in Delhi, and it provides a Fulbright grant to at least 350 fellows annually. And there are different categories, and different categories have different sort of, not sort of quotas, but different numbers of students go for Fulbright. So USIEF take care of that in India. At least 350 Fulbrighters every year goes to the US on a Fulbright scholarship. So let's go over a brief, about what USIEF and what categories they offer to, and I'll discuss them slowly. Sorry, in brief. Um, the first category is Fulbright Nehru Fellowships. So interestingly, why they're called Fulbright Nehru Fellowships, it suggests, and actually it means that it's not just the US government funding this program. It also means that it's the Indian government funding this program. So Fulbright Nehru, what suggests that it's a sort of a bilateral partnership with the Indian government. So that's why it's called Fulbright Nehru Fellowships. So it has multiple. Fulbright Nehru Fellowships alone has 4 categories. Fulbright Nehru Masters Fellowship, which is for any Indian student who wants to pursue master's degree in the US for 2 years. Second is Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship, which is the category to which I went to. And this one is quite interesting. I'll describe it later, because this one is slightly interesting and slightly tricky. The third is Fulbright Nehru Postdoctoral Fellowship. It's for Indian PhD holders who wants to pursue a postdoctoral study in their field in an American university. And the last is Fulbright Academic and Professional Excellence Fellowship. This one is, this one is the most competitive, I think, and it's not competitive. I would say it hosts senior scholars, senior researchers, not early career researchers, not mid-career researchers, but senior researchers. All the people I know who have who have received this, who have been awarded with this particular category, Fulbright Academic and Professional Excellence Fellowship, are really, really well known in their fields. And all of these categories sends you to the US for different time periods. Master's fellowship send you for 2 years. Doctoral research fellowship sends to you to the US to 6 to 9 months. Postdoctoral fellowship again for 2 years, because postdoctoral studies is of 2 years. Professional excellence and fellowship sends you to the US for at least 6 to 9 months, I think. Yeah. And now the other category is Fulbright Kalam Climate Fellowship, which is focused on climate change research. If you are a young researcher, focusing on climate change and how climate change works, and your research is around that area, even in the postdoctoral area or PhD area, you can apply for this fellowship. And Fulbright Foreign Language Teaching Assistance for early English teachers, who are interested to teach Indian languages, in the US. If, for example, if you are a English teacher, or you're fluent in any other language, say Hindi, or let's say Odia, or any other language, and you want to teach that in the US, that's the program you can apply for. And then there are other categories, Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Program for international teachers. If Indian teachers who pursue independent project, with American colleges and American schools. Humphrey Fellowship is quite interesting. I have the least amount of idea about it, because it's about diplomacy and it's about management. This is the only one which is non-academic in nature, which is more diplomatic, which is also more about management and how you manage American organizations, how you take back when you come back to India. So before I proceed, this is important to understand that Fulbright scholarships is not a mean. It's not. They are not mean for to get an American passport or get an American green card. It's a program for you to go to the US, pursue your study and research, and come back to India and give back to your community what you have gained through the US. So it's a two-way program. For example, I'm an Indian musicologist. I studied Indian classical music at University of Delhi. I went to the Graduate Center, City University of New York. That was my host institution. I I shared my knowledge and my experience from University of Delhi, the culture, the knowledge, the sociological understanding I had. I shared all of that with my host community at the Graduate Center and to New York. And when I came back to India, I shared it back, to my home community here in India. I shared with them my experience. I shared with what I was doing there, and how valuable it was for me, and how they can pursue the same path, which exactly what I'm doing here. So that's what Fulbright category is. I mean, often I've seen students being misunderstood that if they get a Fulbright, they will get a it will be easier for them to get a American green card, or they can have a future in the US. Not necessarily. This is not the program which eases that. It's not the program which is supposed to be for that. Okay. So now I'll go about the category. Describe the category which I was awarded with, which is Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship. Um, so this one is quite interesting, and it's a slightly tricky. It's applicable to a small number of students, particularly those who are registered in an Indian university for pursuing a PhD. So Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship is supposed to be for Indian students who are registered in an Indian university to pursue a PhD, and they believe that some part of their PhD would be better done in an American university. For example, my PhD was about scale theory, or something called something sort of a dichotomy between how musical scales develops and how they are implemented in music. So for that, I studied Indian scales in India, but I wanted to see how it works in Western classical music. At my university, at University of Delhi, there were no American musicologists, or Western musicians or music analysts. So I said in my statement of purpose that this is an important part of my PhD. I cannot pursue that in India. For that, I need to go to the US. And that's why I'm applying for Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship. And I explained them the project, what I want to do, how I want to do, and I eventually received it. So it has to be something which you can do better in the US. If you can do it, for example, if I would be, let's say, if I'm studying, let's say, life and times of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So suppose I'm a political scientist. I'm saying my PhD is about life and times about Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and much of my literature would be based in India. Much of my field work would be based in India. If I would apply for that, I'll say that I cannot do it in India. I need to go to the US. They'll say it's impossible. He was an Indian politician. All of the literature and the resources you need are in India. US is not an ideal place for you to go there. However, if I would be doing comparative study between Atal Bihari Vajpayee, or say, let's say, uh, an American politician, or American Prime Minister, or George Bush, I'm doing comparative study between both of these people, then I can say, you know what, I don't have enough resources here in India to study about George Bush. For that, I need to go to the US. So that's what Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship is about. So what are the documents required? Now I've described what Fulbright is. Now I'll describe, in brief, um, what are the documents required for Fulbright Nehru scholarships? What required for them, and what are the processes you need to make it happen? First, you need a statement of purpose. It's a document which you have to write. I mean, not more than 1.5 pages long, where you have to describe, what you are going to do. First, who you are, what you're going to do with your grant, what your research project is, And also, it would be important if you mention how it is going to help your host society. Because remember, it's diplomacy, but it's also about how would you help, your own community. That's the purpose, is the core of Fulbright. If you're saying that, I'm applying, I'm doing this project, and I have ambition of, I have my own personal ambitions. I want to stay in the US or want to go to other country. Probably that won't work. Rather, what you want to say that, if I do this, that's how I can channelize this learning or find these findings in my host community. That's applicable to all the Fulbrighters from all around the world. For example, I was the first Fulbright scholar from the music department at University of Delhi. And one of the things which I mentioned, that when I go back to the US, or going back to India, I'll create more Fulbright scholars. I said that the Department of Music at University of Delhi lacks a bit of academic the academic rigor for research. I mean, University of Delhi is fantastic, at least the music department, for producing musicians, or for vocalists or instrumentalists, but not really good at they don't really have a culture of providing, you know, research value, or providing research oriented environment. So I said I'll change that. When I go back, I'll channelize my research rigor into University of Delhi, and make sure that other Fulbrighters come after me, and I'll nourish them. I'll work with them, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. A few Fulbrighters who are going to apply this year, to whom I'm helping, and I hope any of them would receive it. It would be great. So I mentioned it. I want to leave a legacy. I'm too young to say that, but still, that's what my ambition was. So the other thing you have to mention is personal statement. The other document that you need is personal statement. So personal statement is sort of your life description, description of your life, and how you have come to it. For example, let's suppose, you know, I'm pursuing research in, let's say, in a very specific medicine which might can, treat cancer, or particular kind of cancer. I'm just, saying anything. I mean, I'm trying to make it very general. Um, I need to come up with the story why I landed at that project, why that project is important for me. Interestingly, one of the Fulbright orientation, before I applied for it, one of the Fulbright coordinators from USF told me that one of the most interesting personal statements they have read, where the scholar mentioned that because some of her family member passed away with because of lack of a particular medicine which wasn't available, or it was really expensive for them to be able to afford it, and it was not easily available. That motivated her to do that particular sort of research within that niche, and she wants to indigenize the production of that particular medicine in India, so that nobody else faces what she and her family has to face. I mean, of course, your story doesn't have to be this grim. I mean, my idea was, my story was very clear, that I've been very fascinated by this cross-cultural idea between, yeah, and the musicological relationships between two different kinds of musics. And I mentioned very specific incidents of my life where I found Western musical scales to be very interestingly different from Indian musical scales. And I thought about it, I worked on it, so that worked for me. And that's what you have to do. You have to present it as sort of a story, and not just your academic story, also your personal story. For example, my personal statement, I started with the fact that I was born and brought up in India. So I was born and brought up in Delhi, not of course in India, but born and brought up in Delhi. I describe a sort of I painted a sort of a sociological and very diverse image of Delhi, that how diverse it is. If you're born and brought up in Delhi, how many people you meet? You meet people from all over India. What sort of, cultural democratic value which I was able to absorb, while I was born and brought up in Delhi. And that's something very unique to me. Again, your personal story has to be unique to you. It cannot be generic, right? For example, one thing interesting I think I mentioned, which came very much in my favor, there are two things. First, I mentioned that I am born and brought up in a middle class conservative society, conservative family, financially conservative family, where pursuing music or any other field from the mainstream is considered a taboo, sort of a financial taboo, and they want to pursue, the Indian families want and their offsprings to pursue fields such as engineering or medicine, which are more financially rewarding. But I revolted against it, and I'm trying to change that. So that worked, and that gives a very strong narrative, about my life story. And I mentioned, this is very interesting. I mentioned about my hobbies. I mentioned that I'm a mountaineer. I do mountaineering up to 20,000 feet in the Himalayas. And I mentioned that because of mountaineering, I believe in the value of teamwork. Because in mountaineering, you work with your other team members, and this value is strongly inculcated into me. When I come back to India, I'll work with my other professors and other colleagues to really channelize what I have learned in the US, and make a more progressive research-oriented environment at my university. So that's what your personal statement is about. The other is recommendation letters. So you need three people to recommend you. It can be anyone. It can be your professors or your researchers, or it cannot be your friends. It has to be professionally or academically affiliated to what you're doing. Okay. Um, it's important if you sort of change your recommendation letters on the basis of your categories. For example, if you're applying for a research grant, academic and excellence grant, or postdoctoral grant, then it would be valuable, if you would have researchers, and professors to recommend you, rather, having people such as your boss, or your people in the higher management if you're working in an institution, those recommending you. It should be, more and more and closely affiliated to what you're doing. It would be better. For example, one of my students applying for a Fulbright this year, and he's working for an organization, and he was asking if the principal of that organization, it's a school, the principal of the school can recommend him. And I asked, what's the principal's job? And he said it's an education. He's a general educationist. I mean, like the principal of a school. So I said he doesn't have an expertise in the field, but you for which you through which you're applying for a Fulbright. And I said if that's the case, his recommendation letter might be a good sort of a, you know, might provide you a good sort of a good personal caricature of you, how you are as a person, how you are as an employee, but it won't be able to, you know, penetrate the minds of the reviewers in a way that they would know how well you are as a researcher, how much critical thinking you have, how much effort you put in when you frame a research idea, how you write them, and how you are in group discussion and academic discussions. So for that, it's better if you have one of the recommendation letters from someone under whom you have worked as a researcher. That would be an ideal situation. If you cannot get someone like that, if your principal is writing, then try to frame it in a way where your principal can talk about your research rigor, your rigor as a musician and a researcher. That would be better. So that's recommendation letters. And other thing you need is writing sample. So writing sample, I'm not entirely sure if you need it for Fulbright Nehru Master's Fellowship, but for others fellowships you need it. So writing sample is could be anything, it could be a paper, could be an article, or it could be a chapter of your thesis, a master's thesis, or something I've written. It could be anything. What they want to know is your ability as a researcher, how critical you are in your mind, your ability, how well you can write. So it has to be a good academic work. It could be anything, but it has to be academic work. It cannot be an article, let's say, in any magazine, or a newspaper. It has to be in academic in nature. Okay. And the last is invitation letter, which is very, very important. They say it's not mandatory, but without it, your chances of getting a Fulbright goes very slim. So what is invitation letter? Invitation letter is a letter from a university in the US, from an American university, which says that we are ready to accept this particular scholar if he or she gets the Fulbright. For example, when I was applying for Fulbright, I received my letter from the graduate center. I contacted the professors. I read their work. I contacted them, and they said, you know what, we are happy to have you here. We're happy to host you here. And they sent me a letter saying that Mr. Jatin Mohan, is a researcher, is working on this. It aligns with our principal values. Would be working under this particular person, and we are happy to host him. The other facility will provide him if he gets it. So that letter, you put in as part of the application, and this is really, really, really critical. I can't emphasize enough how valuable it is. Without it, you can apply for it, but however, you will probably will not get it. Why? Because it puts a lot of mental stress on the selection committee. Even if you're good, they do not know where to send you. And sometimes what can work is that they might send you at places where you do not want to go. They might send you in West Virginia, where you don't want to do anything. I mean, there's nothing to do there. Or say, at a deep down island in Hawaii, I don't know where. I mean, where you feel like I shouldn't be here. So to avoid all of these things and to ensure your selection, not ensure, but like to make sure that you have a strong application, you need an invitation letter. For that, you have to work way much in advance, before your Fulbright application starts. You just start working on your Fulbright application. So that's the last slide. What it gives you, again, very briefly, it gives you academic and professional development. You meet people from all around the world. You work under bright minds, really, really, really smart people from all around the world. It gives you cultural exchange and networking. I mean, to be honest, if there's a globe, if I would have a world map, I can point my finger to any country and I can say, I know someone from there. I have met someone from there. It's all because of Fulbright. So I have this massive community. I'm part of this massive Fulbright community all around the world. Leadership and career advancement. Of course, when you get a Fulbright, your job is to also help your host society. So it puts the seeds in you of a leader. Teaching and learning exercises. Some Fulbrighters teach there. I did a bit. So you teach a very different cohort of students than what you were doing at your institution. Community engagement and impact, of course, when you come back, you will be working with your own community. So it's a fantastic program, and it's an interesting, it can be a very valuable change in your, in your academic and personal journey if you get it. And just, by the end, when it's about to end, I'll just mention very briefly that Fulbright is not very difficult. Fulbright is actually one of the easiest fellowships that you will get as compared to the others. The selection rate in Fulbright worldwide is 17%, I think, and for India is around 7 to 8%, which is really, really high comparatively. If you compare it with Rhodes Scholarship, which is around 0.7, or other elite flagship scholarship of different parts of the world, it's very difficult to get in. But for Fulbright, it's much easier. You don't need to be a star, but you need to show potential, that you can be a star, you can be a leader in your field later. So it's for very early career researchers, very early career researchers. It's not for advanced researchers. And one last thing I have to mention that was one of those things which I don't like about Fulbright, which many people also do not, is that it comes with a 2-year, like it prohibits you to go to the US for next 2 years after your Fulbright on many categories of visas. So it's sort of a ban, not ban, but it's sort of like sort of prohibition that you cannot go to the US for next 2 years after your Fulbright. There are certain categories you cannot go to. You cannot apply for H-1B, you cannot apply for J-1, but you can apply for F-1 as a student. You can go as a tourist, you can go, but it blocks many other categories for you for next 2 years. But with that said, it's a fantastic program. There's no other program like it, which gives you that much exposure, and financially they take care of you, and in every possible way they take care of you. So this is a program which I think every Indian should know about, and once in their life, if they're academic, if they're in academia, they should really consider it. So that was it. That was the talk.
Yes, sir. If you can stop sharing your screen, sir. Can you close your PPT? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a very informative session, sir. One question, like I think you have covered, maybe I have missed it. So my question is, can the local American children or any the local community, can they apply for Fulbright, or only from outside of the US? Only they are eligible.
Oh, so Americans can also apply for a Fulbright. So it's sort of an exchange program. So any American scholar can apply for a Fulbright and can say, I want to go to this university in this part of the world, and can apply and submit his application. So it works two ways. Yeah, it's about sending Indian researchers and students to the US, and sending US researchers and students to all around the world, wherever they want to go to.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, sir. I have received a couple of questions. Actually, 90% of the questions are already covered by you. Received in the sense like from the educators group, like I have received a couple of questions in my personal window. So I'll just read out those questions. If you have covered, you can skip them, or if you want to throw more light on it, you can do so. Okay. It goes with the application process. Their question is, are there any specific deadlines we should be aware of?
So every program has a specific deadline. I think for Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship, the deadline around for this year is around, I think, is 23rd of July, and every program has a specific deadline. So that you can find on USIEF website.
Okay.
Log on to the website and they have a brochure, and every program is listed with the deadlines, the requirement, and eligibility, and everything. Everything you need is there.
Okay, okay. Yeah, talking about the eligibility and everything, are there any particular academic or professional backgrounds that are preferred, sir? That has more
So
weightage?
So it depends what category you're applying for. For example, if Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship, what you only need is that you're registered in an Indian university for a PhD, and you're probably around the second or third year of your PhD. If you qualify these two categories, you probably will be able to, apply for it. Fulbright Nehru Master's Fellowship, however, is very tricky. You need to have at least 4 years of bachelor. If you have 3 years of bachelor, you can apply for it. If you have 3 years of bachelor, you need to add it up with 2 years master's program. Then you can apply for full master's fellowship. So
Right,
every
because their
category is,
undergrad is like for 4 years, right? Is that the reason? They
yes.
seek, yes, right. Okay. So, what are the main qualities or achievements that the selection committee looks for in a candidate, sir? You have mentioned, you know, but can you throw more light on it, please?
Well, yeah, it's a very important question. They look for multiple things. First and first, your academic rigor, of course, and the value of your project. Does the project really bring some value to the American community and your host community, and which country, whatever country you belong to. So that's the one thing you look for. Second, your speaking skills, your communication skills, because they're not just sending you there to do your research. They don't want you to be in a lab stuck down there. Remember that Fulbright is also about diplomacy. You also have to get out of your cocoon, meet other people, and share with your cultural upbringing, your cultural baggage. So your communication skills also plays a massive role. And third, very interestingly, is how sort of how well you can really tell your story. I mean, again, it's about communication, but it's slightly different. For example, in the interview, I was asked this when I described my project, when I described what I'm going to do, academic is all over. The USF executive director, Adam Grodsky, he stopped me, he said, wait for a second. Now I want to ask you a question, and you won't say anything about about your project, about your organization, but you will just answer my question. And he asked, how you plan on to convince young Americans to visit India by sharing your story. And that I thought a very fantastic, very, it's a question which really,
Very interesting. Yes.
yeah. So I said, and many other people, I suppose must have answered it by saying, we'll show them a movie, we'll play a musical concert, or whatever, it could be anything. But I said, I'm a seasoned Himalayan mountaineer. I have traveled all around India. I'm a sincere backpacker. I do a lot of backpacking all around India. And I have uncountable stories, unheard stories, and uncountable pictures and videos about India, which most people won't have access to. So I can share all of those stories. I bring all of that travel and mountaineering experience with me, which most people do not have. So I can share, all of those things with the with my American host community. So I said I'm sure that after listening to the stories, I also shared some anecdotes with them. After listening to the stories, they will surely would like to visit India. So yeah, these are the
Like
questions
they
which
might
they
have
might
got
ask
very
you.
impressed.
Yeah, probably. I hope.
Yeah, they might have done. So, sir, the next question is, how does the scholarship support the students' professional goals, sir? Like you mentioned that like don't look at it as a like as a settlement thing for a green card or a citizenship, or like you will secure a job, because it comes with a yeah, it's not a good word to use, a ban of 2 years
Yeah.
for the re-entry. But how does this scholarship support the professional goals of the students?
So first thing first, Fulbright is a massive brand. It's a tag you have, and once you have that tag, whenever you apply for any institution which knows about this tag, it immediately puts your application over the others.
Okay.
For example, when I apply for mine, I'm currently teaching at Ireland University, and when they came to know I'm a Fulbright scholar, it's a tag of excellence. They already know that you're good.
Right.
Right. And for Fulbright, a few other Fulbrighters, and it's very interesting. So there are few Fulbright scholars from IITs who went to the US, and all of them were offered postdoctoral fellowships. Of course, with 2-year ban, for 2-year prohibition, they couldn't stay in the US. But they're waiting for the 2-year prohibition to end, and the moment it will end, they'll go back to the US for a postdoctoral fellowship. So it can also support you in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Coming to the preparation tips again, sir, like this is like, a couple of educators have asked the same question. That's the reason I'm repeating the same to you. Do you have any tips or best practices for prospective applicants to strengthen their application and improve their chances of being selected?
There are 3 suggestions I would like to give. First, start it as early as possible. If you're going to apply for next cycle, start it this cycle. Start you're preparing your application in July. You know.
Right.
Second, do not do this alone. It's a difficult and long application, particularly if a student do not have experience with applying for these long applications. It's better you contact someone. And when I mean by contact someone, when you go to the USIEF website, go to the alumni section, you will find people from, you will find you'll find profiles of Fulbright scholars from India and from the US. You can be very generous, by reading their work, or you can be interesting on their profile and send them an email that, hey, I found your profile here, and I'm very interested, with the work you're doing. I'm interested in applying for this particular fellowship. If you can help, it will be wonderful if you can help me. And I can guarantee you that most people I know who've gotten Fulbright in my cohort would be really eager to help any other student, and so as I am. And in fact, even myself, I did not prepare for the application alone. I was supported and thoroughly by an American Fulbrighter whom I contacted, just like that. I read his work and just contacted him. So do not do it alone. If you do it with someone, it's better. And third, ask hard questions, ask valuable questions. For example, how you're going to support your host community by it. How this project came into your mind when you're writing a personal statement. Which particular institution you want to go to. So the invitation letter is really critical. So, contact people, under whom you want to work. Contact them as early as possible, and be very clear, with, how you're going to get the invitation letter, and how would you be, putting that in your application, how it will relate to your own project. So yeah, so these are the 3 tips I have.
So, sir, as a Fulbright scholar and student advisor, can the applicants approach you? Is there any professional way they can, and like is it chargeable or any way?
Oh, well, it's not chargeable. They can contact me. My email ID, I'm happy to leave it there in the chat. You can share it with
Yes,
any
please.
of
They're
the
asking
interested
about that
students.
also. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If they can also contact me, find my email address through the Fulbright alumni, page on the USI website.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm happy to help anybody. If the students are serious enough, only then.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
So, sir, any like program like this, it comes with its own challenges. So, what are some common challenges applicants face during the application process, and how can they overcome them? You have like just mentioned 3 important points, right? So, I'm considering them as challenges if they're not approached properly. But any other common challenges you would like to mention?
Well, in all of them, yeah, diplomacy is a part of all of them. So you should be able to present, you should be able to market yourself, that you would be able to contact and, communicate with people, in your host community in the US. That you should be able to market yourself like, if you're saying that you are someone who stays in the library throughout the day, that doesn't really fulfill the Fulbright program's requirements. If you say I'm someone who studies a lot but also goes a lot out a lot and meet people and like to market and network, then that's where it's satisfies the the Fulbright's mission of education and diplomacy. That's the word. They're looking for educational diplomacy. So you should be able to suffice both parts, education and diplomacy, right? If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sir, could you share some examples of how Fulbright scholars have made significant contributions in their respective fields or communities as a result of this opportunity?
Mhm.
Any people like you want to take their names, like what are their contributions to the community, sir?
I mean, first thing first, there's this particular Fulbrighter I know. Her name is Sania Ismail. And she got the Fulbright to go to Colombia. And she currently working with organizations working for the marginalized communities in India. So she's making a really massive impact, by changing the idea, how, Indians, in particular, in this particular cultural, socio-political settings, how they look onto their marginalized community. And many Fulbrighters I know, there's one I know, very interesting. This really rural boy from Haryana, I don't remember his name, who went on to get the Fulbright to pursue pursue MBBS. I think that's what they call. I don't know what they call in the US, at Harvard. And then he became a community doctor. Now he's working in Haryana on a very grassroots level and providing excellent health care, which those people otherwise wouldn't have access to if it wasn't for him. So he's really channelizing what he, earned through the US. And many Fulbrighters, from different fields, working in their fields, and of course, analyzing their experience. Um, and many of them become professors. Many of them become professors, and work in their fields. And if you look for the changes the Fulbrighters have made, I mean, interestingly, the current Prime Minister President of the UK, I don't know, Rishi Sunak, he was also a Fulbright scholar.
Is it?
So yeah. So there are many people like that, who are making massive changes all around the world.
Yeah. So one last question, sir. So many students like aspire for big scholarships. If not Fulbright scholarship, are there any other similar programs are you aware of? Would you recommend?
You can look for Erasmus Mundus scholarship.
Okay.
It's a scholarship to pursue master's degree in European universities. The selection rate there is around, I think, 10 to 15%. It comes from different fields. It's a very good scholarship, and it's one of the good parts about it that they do not give you any prohibition period. When you get a Erasmus Mundus, you are there in your host country for 2 years in the Europe, but they also allow you to apply for a post-academic work visa, which is really good. DAAD in Germany, DAD is fantastic. To study and pursue research in Germany. Australia has some good opportunities, but they're really competitive. There's something called Mackenzie Fellowship to pursue postdoc, and DECRA, which is really competitive. Sydney Horizon Fellowship, really competitive. Commonwealth Split Spite Fellow is also something which Indian PhD students might want to look into. It's for Indian students, again, registered in university for a PhD, wants to pursue some part of the PhD in Oxford University. Not any university in the world, but only in Oxford. So they can apply for this particular category. Commonwealth Split Spite Fellow. Yeah.
Great, sir. So thank you for addressing all these questions, sir. We appreciate your time and insights on this valuable opportunity. Anything else you want to mention before we conclude the session?
Just one thing, anybody who's interested in Fulbright, just go for it. I mean, I was rejected in 2019, but I applied again in 2020. So it might take one or two attempts, but eventually, if you keep knocking the door, you'll get it.
Yeah, so I request whoever watches this session, and once we upload on YouTube channel, like there is, sir has left his email ID also, or the educators who have requested me to ask these questions, they can also ask about the email ID I can share. And that's all for the session, sir. Thanks a lot once again. It was
Thank you.
very
Thanks a lot.
informative, and I have learned a lot
Thank you.
through this session. We will end the session now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.